Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. 2 people have been killed and 1 injured during a third night of unrest in the US city of Kenosha, sparked by the police shooting of an unarmed black man. Police have said that 3 people were shot but gave no details about who was involved. This footage shows chaotic scenes as gunfire rang out, scattering people in the streets. Unrest broke out in Kenosha after Jacob Blake was shot by police on Sunday. People have since defied emergency curfews in the city to join protests, which at times have turned violent. Meanwhile, in the second night of the Republican National Convention, a collection of US President Donald Trump's allies have portrayed him as the best hope for America's future. Trump currently trails behind Democratic challenger Joe Biden in opinion polls ahead of November's election, but the president's family and supporters have slammed what they call media bias and argued that his leadership and political accomplishments were vital to the country's future.
In my husband, you have a president who will not stop fighting for you and your families. I see how hard he works each day and night, and despite the unprecedented attacks from the media and opposition, he will not give up. In fact, if you tell him he cannot be done, he just works harder.
Survivors and families of victims of the 2019 mosque shooting in New Zealand have spoken out against gunman Brenton Tarrant on the 3rd day of his sentencing.
He has no love.
There was a sense of grief, but also one of defiance in the air as almost 90 people spoke about the incident that killed 51 people in Christchurch last year. Tarrant has pleaded guilty to 51 counts of murder, 40 attempted murders, and 1 charge of terrorism. He faces life in prison, possibly without parole, a sentence that has never been imposed in New Zealand until now. At least 70 people have died and dozens injured in flash flooding in northern Afghanistan's Parwan province. The flooding struck the city of Charikar overnight while people were asleep. Many of the victims are women and children, and the death toll is expected to rise. This footage shows the streets of the provincial capital Charikar under piles of debris, with vehicles inundated in floodwaters. Kim Jong-un has warned North Korean authorities to prepare for the dangers posed to the country by the coronavirus pandemic and a looming typhoon. Kim's appearance at a party meeting comes after widespread speculation over his health. North Korea has not confirmed any COVID-19 cases, and it is thought that a large outbreak would have a devastating effect on the impoverished nation. Meanwhile, Typhoon Bavi is expected to hit North Korea later this week. Meanwhile, 2 Hong Kong pro-democracy lawmakers are among 16 people to have been arrested as a crackdown on democracy supporters widens. Lam Chuk Ting and Ted Hui Chi-fung from the Democratic Party have been accused of rioting over a July 2019 incident when masked men attacked protesters after a rally. These latest arrests come 2 weeks after police arrested media tycoon and vocal Beijing critic Jimmy Lai over a controversial national security law that China recently imposed on Hong Kong. African countries have closed in on 1.2 million coronavirus cases. That's according to an update by the Africa Centre for Disease Control and Prevention. Southern Africa has the most coronavirus cases on the continent, followed by Northern Africa and the West. East and Central Africa have recorded the least cases. The centre has been urging nations to be more aggressive in dealing with the pandemic, calling for more testing and contact tracing. A group of Kenyan comedians has set up a virtual quarantine comedy club, which is broadcast live every night from a Nairobi hotel. Stand-up comedy performances without an audience was a challenge at first, but this talented group has gained a committed following on social media, with performances streamed straight onto their Facebook accounts. Kenya has banned public gatherings after imposing a nightly curfew in March as part of measures to curb the spread of the virus. And finally, some of classical music's most beloved artists have come together to create a music video to raise funds for women and children suffering domestic abuse in Mexico. The group of 27 artists was founded during the pandemic crisis by Mexican conductor Alondra de la Parra, combining individual footage from 14 countries. This video shows all of the artists performing with a custom groove track of percussion, piano and bass. The video has already raised more than $325,000 that will go towards 2 foundations working to curb domestic abuse. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.